Welcome to Stock Market Voyager. I'm Christy Kern. Xtract One is expanding across schools, sports, entertainment, and also healthcare with AI powered threat detection. And today we'll dive into recent wins, product momentum, and the path forward with Xtract One CEO Peter Evans. Peter, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for having me on the show. I've been looking forward to this.
So, Xtract One just reported Q3 fiscal year 2025 results, noting backlog at record levels and continued positioning for growth. What are the biggest demand drivers you're seeing as scale deployments?
Well, it's a great question, and what we see is we serve four basic market verticals. Across healthcare, unfortunately, we're seeing a continued rise in threats to those healthcare workers, and that's creating a lot of pull on us. And you start to see organizations or states like California who've now mandated for weapons screening. We want to make sure our hospitals are safe environments. And then, of course, in school environments, we have unfortunate incidents like the one that occurred earlier this week. People want to make sure their kids are safe at school every day. And so we're seeing a strong pull from the schools, particularly with our new One Gateway product. And then our traditional markets, arenas, stadiums, where fans can get in faster, have a much better experience when they go to see Taylor Swift and they've paid thousands of dollars for that event. They don't want to be standing outside. They want to be in fast. And we can do that. And of course, manufacturing, the auto manufacturers and others continue to be great customers for us. So across the world and across our segments, we're seeing more and more pull for creating safer environments and keeping the threats out of those environments, which is driving the growth of our business.
And in the last few weeks, you announced Volusia County Schools in Florida selected 48 gateways for high schools, plus also wins with districts in Virginia and also Michigan. What's unique about K through 12 requirements, and how does Gateway solve issues for safety and student flow?
Well, that's a really good question. And so when you think of the historical solutions, whether it's walk-through metal detectors or other competitive solutions, they alert on too much metal. And a laptop is too much metal. So there was always this conundrum for a school. How do I protect the students in the school from the threat of weapons, guns, knives, things like that, but not having to inspect every bag or every laptop alerting as it goes in the door? And I don't want to make the school look like a TSA checkpoint where you've got an X-ray machine and a screener for the people. So we've invented a new and unique technology where you can walk through with a backpack, a laptop, charger, a metal water bottle, tablets, everything, and it won't alert. But if the child has a gun or a knife, or somebody else coming to school, the system will specifically say there's a gun in the backpack, there's a knife in the pocket. Now we're talking larger knives right now, but we'll get to smaller knives soon. And so as more and more people are looking to protect our children and create a safe and welcoming environment of education, we can deliver that solution. And most kids are just walking in as if there was nothing there, but the school is infinitely safer than it was before.
You also announced San Mateo Medical Center in California with plans to expand beyond the main campus there. How is healthcare adopting AI screening, and what early results or learnings can you share with us?
Yeah, another great question. Thank you for that. Yeah, California has actually implemented a law that says all healthcare organizations will screen for weapons on the way into the hospital. And that has to be in place by 2027. So, healthcare organizations like San Mateo and many others that we're talking to are getting ahead of the curve as fast as they can. 76% of workplace violence happens in the healthcare environments. And the proximity of the caregiver, the nurse, the doctor, to the patient who might be having a mental episode, a drug-related episode, a pain-related episode, means that there's a high requirement for a lot of security. And we see it every day with healthcare organizations where there is situations with guns and knives. One of our customers, Centera Healthcare in Virginia, when they tried the system, they found 5.6% of the people walking into the venue had a weapon on them. And another 5% approached the venue, saw our screening, and turned away and went back to their car and then came back again. So it's a challenge in these environments. Our ability to allow people to come right into the healthcare environment, seek the care they're looking for while keeping the weapons out in a non-invasive, very transparent, very frictionless manner is what's kind of driving a lot of that growth for us in those industries.
On August 14th, you disclosed a US $2.6 million follow-up with a global entertainment organization that hosts about 25 million visitors annually. How does this deepen your international footprints and land and expand strategy?
Yeah, we've always been focused very much on North America, but the world wasn't willing to wait for us when they saw what we could do. And we've had a business with this global entertainment organization. In fact, we've announced two others. that are, major organizations. Many of them don't want us to use their name because they don't want to tip off what they're doing around security. But this one organization continues to expand, continues to grow, and we're growing with them as they expand parks or as we move into other parks and entertainment venues. And so outside of North America, the problem is knives, it's not guns. And so if you go to places like Singapore, Japan, Australia, the United Kingdom, France, all these organizations are looking, or these countries are looking for solutions that detect not only the firearms, but the knives also. And we can uniquely do that without alerting on the smartphones, the purses, the watches, the cell phones, and the keys. So we're seeing a fantastic pull on our business right now internationally, much sooner than we originally planned.
You've also added MLB's Colorado Rockies at Coors Field and continue to work with Oakview group managed venues. So, what are the league and operators asking for now? And how do you balance security with throughput and also the fan experience?
Well, that's a great question, Christy. And that is the heart of what we do. Historically, more security meant a poor guest experience. As you ratchet up more security, you had to wait longer in line, you had to have your bag inspected, and these sorts of things. And so it's always been a conundrum where you had this kind of headbutting between a great guest experience and more security. And with the world getting riskier, with more and more threats, with more and more incidents, people are looking to find a way to increase the security while also increasing the guest experience. That's what we're doing by digitally transforming the industry with AI software so that I can say, this is Christy, and you can walk right on through, and you've got your bag, you've got your cell phone, you've got your watch, your wallet, and it doesn't alert. But if you have a knife, we can identify that. Now, what's most interesting with people like the Colorado Rockies is they've tested all the technologies. They like what we're doing, not only because we're providing that great experience, they said probably, the best technology they've used, but we're also now starting to provide a future. So when I think, Christy, of your journey, let's say you go to see a Rockies game. You have to stand in line to have your purse checked. You have to stand in line to go through the metal detector. You have to stand in line to go through ticketing. That's not a great guest experience. And with a platform, what we can do is create extensibility to have the system say, this is Christy. She hasn't been banned from the venue. She has a valid ticket and she doesn't have a weapon on her. And you haven't stopped walking from the sidewalk to your seat. It's an entirely different guest experience in leveraging digital innovation.
Absolutely. Also, your newer Xtract One gateway is positioned for environments with more personal items, like you just mentioned, bags, laptops, while Smart Gateway targets high throughput events. So, where does each win, and what's the key performance indicators that matter most to the customers?
Yeah, it's a great question. Every segment has a unique requirement. Schools don't alert on the laptops. Let the kids just walk right in. And so that's where One Gateway fits very, very well. Creating those safe environments for places like office buildings or convention centers or schools where the average person has got a backpack with a lot of stuff in it. And with, the unfortunate tragedy that occurred at New York at the NFL headquarters, we're now seeing a significant increase in demand from office buildings and locations. The Smart Gateway has been more purpose-built for places like arenas and stadiums where somebody has a lighter amount of clutter on them. You don't go to see the Knicks game with your backpack with your laptop to go do your emails. You've got your cell phone, your keys, and your watch. And so it also, though, provides a much higher efficacy of getting very, very small weapons. So in the hospitals or the NBA game, where they don't want to have the small little knives and box cutters that close to the players or that close to the caregivers. So each has been purpose built to serve different markets in a different way based on what the priorities of those markets are.
Interesting. So you earned USDHS Safety Act designation in 2024 for multi-sensor gateway portfolio. How has that impacted enterprise adoption in sectors like pro sports, airports, and other large venues?
Well, it's a great question. We go out and make sure that, unfortunately, the physical security industry is somewhat characterized by aggressive marketing. And so we've taken another approach and said, let's have our technology tested by the TSA, tested by the FAA, tested by the NPSA in the United Kingdom, and obviously the US DHS Safety Act. And the value there is for organizations like sports stadiums, the pro sports leagues require DHS. It's mandatory for you to be able to deploy your solutions. In other places like airports or even say a school, knowing the product has been certified by a third party organization that takes security seriously, or if they don't certify it, they verified it for its effectiveness in the intended applications. That gives people peace of mind and comfort that they may not have to go through that same rigor of testing themselves. they can rest assured that it's been done by the experts.
In June, you closed an approximately $8 million bought deal public offering. How are you allocating capital to accelerate installs, fulfill backlog, and support gateway up rollouts?
Well, that's a great question. And, any new technology takes a lot of money to get it going. You have to build out the manufacturing processes. You have to enable the supply chain. If you look at our system, it's got perfectly designed, plastic shapes. And so you have to get the hard kind of plastic molding injection systems all in place. So it takes money to get it going. So with that investment was primarily to drive the build out of the one gateway, but also to start providing the capital. If it takes us for 10 weeks to go from ordering parts to converting those parts to systems that are shipped in revenue, you now have the kind of the cash, the capital to manage that period of time. But with the demand we're seeing for the one gateway, we previously announced about $6.7 million of orders. That's grown significantly with organizations like Volusia. The flywheel has already started. So that capital has been put to effective use to build a business model, which is now funding and fueling itself for rapid growth.
And with rising revenue scale and improving operating leverage, what milestones should investors watch for as you move toward break even?
I think that the continued growth of the backlog, that's a predictor of the future. That is revenue where we've already booked the contracts, but the revenue is not converted yet, either because the customer is deploying over time. You don't deploy to 200 schools all at once, or 50 schools, or 12 schools all at once. You typically do one at a time and move through. So that's a backlog of future revenues. And that growth of that backlog is telling you more and more people are signing contracts. And then it just becomes a matter of execution. And the math is very simple. If you think about it, if we're running mid 60s of gross margin, and once our top line hits sort of 30 million of revenues, now your cash flow break even, and that creates a very different value proposition around the business.
And what top two or three catalysts should investors have on the calendar, whether that's
Wow.
deployments, product milestones, or your upcoming investor conference schedule for the fall?
Yeah, we've got a very, very busy investor conference schedule for the fall. I think I'm on the road almost every 2 weeks with investors. And it's a great time because as we work towards our earnings announcement in the third week of October, which will, close our fiscal year and put our fiscal year announcement out into the marketplace, I think the investors can be very pleased that we had a solid Q4. We're looking at solid Q1, Q2 based on the backlog, on the demand for one gateway. So I think the investors should continue to watch the news feed as we win more and more piece of business. Watch for our earnings calls in late October and participate in any of these investor calls as they get more and more news on the business. We're heading towards cash flow break even, which I think is fantastic. And One Gateway itself has been a fantastic catalyst for further incremental growth on top of what we're already doing.
Peter, thank you so much for the update. It's exciting to see so much momentum across schools, healthcare, entertainment, and of course, sports. And we'll be watching closely the next set of installations and milestones.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Christy. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today, and I hope we can do it again soon.
Thank you so much. And to our viewers, of course, you can visit Xtract One's investor page for more information. Thank you so much for joining us.